All right, hello, my name is Joseph Fernandez. I like to say that I teach at Sunlake, which I do. I also am an adjunct faculty member for Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University. So I have this badge and this badge. So I'm not only a high school teacher, but I teach at the collegiate university level for dual enrollment. Currently at Sunlake, I teach robotics, engineering dual enrollment, computer science, and I help out. I'm starting to teach the aerospace courses, mostly the unmanned courses to be precise. We have another teacher over there as well. His name is Mr. Nathan Rice. He'll be covering most of the manned courses in question. So I'm going to go through all the courses that we have available at Sunlake, and I'm going to explain the progression as they go along, show you a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of fancy stuff going on. But first, it's the Sunlake Aerospace Career Academy is what it's officially called. And so the district is the one who allows us to be a school to exist. And so we fall under that body. So I have like two people I talk to. I have the people at Embry-Riddle University who tell me I need to do blah, blah, blah. And I have people at Pasco. And so at Pasco, our mission is we exist to provide a world-class education for all students. And our vision is all our students achieve success in college, universities, careers, and of course in life. And, so we have all these different visions of instructional excellence. So being able to think critically, collaboratively, and communicate, learn within and outside of the school community, utilize a variety of tools and resources when we do that, so on and so forth, take ownership for their learning, build strong content knowledge. Our responsibility is that we're going to give rigorous instruction. So a lot of the Aerospace Academy courses, especially after freshman year, are going to be at the collegiate university level. So the rigor is going to be much higher than the normal high school rigor. It's going to be harder, lots harder. It's okay, they can run around. Equitable practices. We have to be equal and equitable. We have to give the same hopeful outcome to all the students who go into our class and obviously put in the effort to do so. And we have to be compassionate as we're doing all that. So who should be coming to our academy? Well, I'm going to spoil something for you. We are the only high school, Sunlake High School is the only high school in Pasco County that does aerospace aviation. There is a small thing that's at Rushi. I think people at Rushi may know there's a little aerospace thing there. But when it comes to high schools, we are the only aerospace academy left. There used to be others. We are now the only one. So we are a magnet school in aerospace. So if you're looking for a career in aviation or aerospace, which includes being a pilot, commercial pilot, joining the Air Force or other military branch that involves aircraft, working on aircraft or spacecraft, working in the private industry such as SpaceX or government industries such as NASA, related to aviation and aerospace, or at airports in some capacity, whether you're ideally whether you're a airplane mechanic or a commercial pilot or transport pilot or any of those other things related. They have air traffic control people, the airport people who do all these various different aspects, take care of the runway, set things up, plan things, deal with the weather, deal with meteorology, and so forth. There's a lot that gets involved in aerospace and aviation, as well as any sort of aerospace or aviation engineering, and all that's built with building planes, designing planes, building aircraft, designing aircraft, on down the line. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to direct you to our website, which is like all high schools. It's SLHS, which stands for Sunlake High School, at pasco.k12.fl.us/academies. You will find the Aerospace Academy, so you can find out more about that there. Fancy transition. And of course, if you want to come to Sunlake for the Aerospace Academy, you have to apply for it. And there's only limited seating because there's only so many initial freshman courses periods we can have. We can only have so many students in the periods. We only have so many teachers currently teaching it. So the teacher can only teach so many periods. They can only use so many slots. We're trying to change that. That's why we have 2 teachers now. We're trying to expand that. But either way, there's only so many of the district says, yes, you can have this many kids going to your program. So you have to apply. You also have to apply for school choice. So that is the QR code for the school choice overview. I know there's probably a presentation that deals with it as well. Here are the deadline dates for them. Starts in January, right? The January 8th to 21st. And then they'll tell you in March if you were accepted. All right. So I started this saying that I am an adjunct faculty from Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University, dealing also with aviation science and engineering. So I'm going to go through the progression of courses that are available through the academy, and then some additional courses that they can take related from it. All right, so this is the list in terms of how it is designated, mostly at Embry-Riddle, except for here in Pasco, and I will go through each of those as we go along. If you want to take a picture or tell me to pause so you can write it down or whatever you want to do, that's perfectly acceptable. All right, so it starts with freshman year, and that's going to be Aerospace Technology 1. That is, we're going to use the AOPA curriculum, which stands for Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. I'm hoping they know a little bit about aircraft. And so they have a curriculum that is presented as a high school course. And the idea is actually twofold. A, we start getting them interested in all the various aspects of aviation and aerospace. It's an introductory course. We're going to give them the foundations of what it takes to actually fly something, what aerospace education is, aerospace engineering, aviation, and unmanned aircraft systems. The other factor here is for dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is where you're enrolled as both a high school student and a college or university student at the same time. You're getting high school credit and GPA and college credit at the same time. The restriction, though, is that you cannot, at least at Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University, they will not allow a freshman in high school to be a dual enrollment student. Sophomore, yes. Junior, yes. Senior, yes. Freshman, no. So we needed a course that sort of helps them get ready to bring up the rigor, as I pointed out earlier, to that level. And this course really does that. And it also explains the difference, and I wanted to bring this up in the slide, the difference between aerospace and aviation, because I've been saying those words a bunch of times. The simple way of saying it is aviation deals with aircraft that fly inside our Earth's atmosphere. Aerospace includes that plus space. Hence the word space in the word aerospace, right? So satellites, rockets, that type of stuff gets expanded into aerospace. But aviation focuses on planes that fly through the air. Or they fly, they glide, helicopters, those type of thing. That's more of that region area. Hot air balloons. That's really what we cover. And we're also going to cover different careers involved in this and different aspects of those careers as well, different skills you need relating to that. It's going to give some general concepts in meteorology / the weather. It's going to talk about flight operations. It's going to talk about airport operations. It's going to talk about the 4 forces of flight, which is a really big concrete thing you have to know about aviation and aerospace. It's going to get into the principles that deal with trying to generate those forces in aircraft, different techniques, different policies, procedures that are involved, how things work, so on and so forth. All right. So I said before we're going to talk about fields and careers in that course as well. It's also going to include rocketry, manned and unmanned flight, aerospace. I don't want to put this up there so you know. Statistically, aerospace engineers start at around 69,000, but their average is about 6 figures, and they could go well up into above 6 figures as an income. Once they get through, obviously, the appropriate schooling, which would include 4 years of college. Airline pilots, of course, start at around that same price range, but their median is also a little higher, and they can. But their pilots are now making easily $200,000-300,000. Airline pilots, actual commercial airline pilots. Now, obviously, it takes some time to build up to that, but you can still get that training, that basic bits you need for that through Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University. Drone pilots. Doesn't sound like you think they'd make a lot. They don't start as high as airline pilots, and their median isn't as nice, but you can definitely make a lot of money doing that as well. There's many different factors: agriculture, real estate, media, marketing, news, journalism, You can also look at, surveying, all these things that they're using drones now for, because it's easier to spend thousands of dollars on a device that goes up in the air and looks at what you want to look at, rather than paying someone lots and lots of money to climb up the tower and hopefully don't fall down. Or worse, try to rent a very expensive aircraft to fly up there and do the same thing, right? It's going to become a lot easier. Also, we have to deal with the fact that just as you have to deal with people using drones for good purposes, then there's people using drones for bad purposes, and then there's people who have to deal with the people using drones for bad purposes. So law enforcement is starting to use drones now, which I'll lead to that as well. Plus, there's a lot of other fields, such as the legal field, where you're dealing with new laws and concepts and rules and regulations on how to do that. So a lot of different career fields get involved in this aspect of aerospace, aviation. And of course, I threw astronauts in there just so you're aware that that's included when we talk about space. All right. So the first dual enrollment course starts in sophomore year. It's called AS 120. Now, I don't know about a lot of you, but in high school, most courses take a year long. Aerotechnologies 1 takes 1 full year. College courses don't take a full year. College courses in general take 1 semester, which means you get a college course once a semester, which means you get 2 college courses every year. 2 college courses every year to do their difference. So this would be in the fall of your sophomore year, right? So in college, again, every semester is a new course. So the first one's going to be AS 120. It's going to go with the basic principles of aeronautic science. It's going to study aircraft systems, weather theory, aerodynamics, human factors in things. One of the things we're going to start covering is how they deal with in aircraft systems and pilots is of medical conditions, factors that affect the pilots when they're flying that you don't think about. Someone has to be behind the yoke on a plane. What happens when they get knocked unconscious? What happens when they get sick? What happens when they get disoriented, right? And other legal factors that go into play too, because there's licensing and certification that has to go on. We look at navigation. How do they actually navigate in the air, right? It's not like they have street signs up in the air. I don't know if you all realize that. You've never looked up in the sky and said, hey, look, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard up there. I see it. I'm just going to take a right there, and then I'm going to take a left at Albuquerque, and I'll be good. No. Navigation, how do they figure out where they are and where they're going, right? And obviously, GPS is fine, but GPS has its own issues, especially since it's only going to tell you about on an idea of the surface of the earth where you are. How high up are you? How are you oriented, right? That's part of navigation. Are there obstacles in the way? I know Florida's pretty flat, but when you get north into our country, surprise, surprise, there's things called mountains, and it's not a very good idea to run into mountains. So you have to avoid the mountains. And GPS is not going to be like, there's a mountain there. You're going to have to look out and find it. And of course, if there's clouds, if it's dark, if it's rainy, there's other ways to detect where things are at. Weight and balance. So one of the things we have to understand is that the balance and how the plane flies is very important. Because it doesn't have the ground to touch on, and because it doesn't have an inner ear to balance, planes are balanced how you load them. And there's calculations you have to do as pilots to make sure your plane is properly loaded, especially on smaller planes, so that it's not off balance, because then it's going to fly bad, which means you're going to crash, right? So that's something they have to learn. Aircraft performance. What makes aircrafts work well? What makes it not work well? What's the weather like that you want to be flying in? What's the weather like you wouldn't want to be flying in? Okay, what factors, what weather conditions cause an effect? What other effects, ground effects, right? How you're approaching, what other terrain deals with things? Does the wind go through the mountain or over the mountain? If it goes over the mountain, how does that affect your aircraft when that wind's coming up over the mountain? It can have an effect. So we also deal with the bits and parts of an airplane, right? We can look at the flight control, the flight surfaces, and what they are and how they're controlled. We can deal with how flow of wind goes around. We can deal with different information that is given to pilots, right, about the weather. An example, I don't know if you've ever heard of a METAR. It is a coded message in a sense that explains what the weather is going to be like, and it's reported out by agencies so that you get that information and you can plan ahead, right? Then we got to deal with the actual effects of the rotation of the Earth. The sun. Is it, how the sun hits? What effects do these things have on the weather, the wind, which can affect your flying, the weather, which affects your flying, right? And other factors. What are the different axes of control on an aircraft, and how do we control them? All that stuff's there. Okay. Then we're going to move next semester. So in the spring of your sophomore year, we're going to start talking about uncrewed or unmanned aircraft systems. We're going to look at it on a more bigger general level, on the level of like the military Reaper drones or more large scale. How do we control them? How do we deal with them? How do we plan with them? Both commercial and military applications. And we're going to get more into planning logistics, planning areas of launch, flight paths that become modeled out with using Google Earth Pro and other different software and applications to figure out how you're going to deal with it, how you're going to take off, how you're going to land. Some of them, they can lift off vertically, some of them can't. And it's not like people make runways for drones. They don't. So you got to sort of figure out or plan your own runway to take off in and land it. Okay? And then the control system. Drone control is very complicated. Even actual plane control is very complicated. It's not as simple as I push button, it flies. It's not the video game where I push the X button a bunch of times and now I'm magically flying in the game. There's actual controls and manipulations that have to occur. And part of that is definitely still in the concept. All right, then we expand our understanding of drones in the fall of junior year. Okay? And we go ahead and we get really into how do you plan long distance cross country things? How do you plan data entry and data analysis for the pictures and such that you're taking? Pre-flight, post-flight, flight operations and planning are going to be dealing with regulations, all that good stuff, right? Relative to drones. Still going into the idea that we use the same techniques that we use for manned aircraft, airspaces, planning, approvals, the ATC has to approve in certain areas if you're flying and so on, what altitude you're flying at, all that good stuff. There has to be a lot of planning involved. That's also going to be true for drones. Sectional charts, all this great stuff. Okay? Some more examples of stuff. Then you have to deal with the weather. Still, drones have to deal with the weather and TAPs and warm weather fronts, right? How they affect where you're planning to fly and how the density of the air can affect how well you take off or don't take off. Still affects it. Then we get into more of the security, ethics, and legal ramifications, and that's going to be the spring of your junior year. Okay, that's still dealing with drones, but there's a lot of new complications that are going on because of the devices that are going out there, and they're getting cheaper and more prevalent. And you're having to deal with it, how you can resolve that, right? It's more of a interactive discussion type. All right. Last but not least, your senior year is a private pilot operations course. It's a year-long course. College course, year-long college course. The purpose of which is to train you up to take and pass the FAA private pilot ground exam. Which, when you are ready, the school, and I say the school, I mean Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Sunlake High School, through Pasco County, pays for you to take the test. You take the test, you get the that test, that exam certification portion of the whole private pilot license, right? So, and then along the way, when I talked about 220, AS220 with the uncrewed aircraft systems, we can give you USI level 1 certification with a safety certification. USI stands for Unmanned Safety Institute. There's another one, an AS235, which is the cross-country data, which is a visual ground certification, right? So you're coming out and possibly through all that, you can be training up for the Part 107, FAA Part 107, which is the remote pilot FAA pilot certificate. So your student can be walking out with 3 certifications and 1 ground exam ready to get their private pilot certification by the time they graduate high school. Every one college course I mentioned, except for 121, offers 3 credit hours. So it's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus, I think this one's actually 6. So it comes out to about 18 credit hours just in the aviation alone. Now, while your child is taking all these courses, which is part of the Aerospace Academy, Here's some more aircraft that are covered in the concept of being a pilot. Just pretty pictures. We have some other courses that we deliver in terms of engineering courses at from Embry-Riddle. First one's going to talk about spatial visualization. So that's going to be in the fall of one year you choose, as long as you're a sophomore or older. Deals with thinking in 3 dimensions in terms of design, followed up by an engineering drawing course, again from Embry-Riddle. These 2 courses add up to 3 credit hours. So it's additional to the 18 I already talked about. I'm going a little fast because I realize it's 6 o'clock and my time's running out. I apologize. So you're making drawings, actual design drawings, which is skills that you can use in other career opportunities as well. Then the second semester in the spring, whatever time in question, we do intro to engineering. This is another course from Aeronautical University. They design and calculate out a 2 to 3 stage rocket launch, including to get a rocket from the ground up into upper atmosphere. They do all the calculations and analysis. I'm going to show it shortly. They do a glider project where they build a glider and launch it. They design it as well. They're going to do rocketry, monorocketry is included. We have a remote control submarine project that we do as part of this course. And we go into the basics of aerospace aeronautic education. Aviation, aerospace, aeronautic engineering, basically. We also talk about career paths as well. Go over a lot of the fundamental skills that engineers need to have, like obviously presentation is one of them, but ethics, dealing with and presenting papers and presentations. We go into professionalism, all those great things. Don't want to go too much there. Some more information about how we design aircraft to deal with and make them stable with stability, right? How you design these things. How do we deal with some factors such as load and drag or lift and drag ratios in designing aircraft? So when we design aircraft, we understand that there's fundamentals of science and physics that say these things have to deal with this way. How do you design them for that? Right? I talked about the project with the rocket. That's sort of the calculation template, right, for plane rocket, designing boosters and so forth to get them in the orbit, right? Talking about the glider project where we pick a plane, we model it in the computer, and then we physically build the glider and launch it. Right? So these are some student group examples in here as well.